Hi, this is Jim McKenzie, interim minister from First Congregational Church in Port Washington, Wisconsin, welcoming you to another worship in the Gap. Well, I'm standing out here among all the weeds that are populating the back part of my yard, and I wanted to make a point about that today. That sometimes things can look rather interesting. They can look actually kind of pretty, but yet they're not real productive. Such were the Pharisees in the time of Jesus, with their fine robes, with their jewelry, their rings and necklaces, and their illusion of perfection. They looked pretty good, but they weren't very productive when it comes to faith. To be sure, Jesus says that faith is a matter of the heart. It's not something that we surround ourselves with. It's not something that we dress up to look good, but it's something that comes from deep within us, maybe that special part that God has created within us. Faith is that sensitivity to matters that are most important in life, instead of the compulsive chasing after unattainable perfection. We do make the same mistakes that the Pharisees make, don't we? Don't we establish our own standards of moral behavior and stand in judgment of others without knowing, wow, these things are sticking, without knowing a person's story, without knowing their life, we step back and then we just make judgments on them. Well, that's what the Pharisees did. They were the standard bearers, they thought, of what was right and what was wrong, of what was true and what was false, what was of God and what was not. Jesus says that when we do that, we are like the blind leading the blind, meaning that we are going nowhere fast. You can do all of the right things for all the wrong reasons and accomplish nothing, all because you think that faith has to do with rules and law and not spirit and grace. The passage today, given in the lectionary reading, is a very interesting story. There's part of it that I'm sure you'll remember, but maybe other parts that will seem a bit new to you. This is from Matthew 15, verses 10 through 28. Then he called the crowd and said to them, "Listen and understand. It's not what goes into the mouth that defiles a person, but it's what comes out of the mouth that defiles." Then the disciples approached and said to him, "Do you know that the Pharisees took offense at what you said?" You can almost hear Jesus saying, "No kidding. No kidding." Their authority and power was based in being the ones that could decide what defiled a person and what couldn't, and Jesus was challenging that. He answered, every plant that my heavenly Father has not planted will be uprooted. In other words, the Pharisaic rules are not of God. Let them alone. They are the blind guides of the blind. And if one blind person guides another, they will both fall into the pit. They're going nowhere fast. But Peter said to him, "Explain this parable to us." And he said, "Are you still without understanding? Do you not see that whatever goes into the mouth enters the stomach and goes out into the sewer? But what comes out of the mouth proceeds from the heart. And this is what defiles. For out of the heart comes evil intentions, murder, adultery, fornication, theft, false witness, and slander. These are the kinds of things that defile a person," Jesus said. "But to eat with unwashed hands," you can almost hear him just exasperated. How you wash your hands, that doesn't have anything to do with faith, you can hear Jesus say. Jesus left that place and then went to the region of Tyre and Sidon. Now I have to tell you that Jesus was practicing his ministry mostly in the areas and the regions where it was mostly populated by Jews. But Tyre and Sidon was a Gentile area. It was a non-Jewish predominantly area where other Canaanites lived. So this is where he now shifts the story, and he goes to this area where, quite frankly, Jews and Canaanites hated each other. They had nothing to do with each other. They despised each other. But this is what Jesus is doing in this passage now. He's shifting from ministering to the Jews to going to where the Gentiles are. The story goes on. Just then, a Canaanite woman from that region came out and started shouting, "Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter," she said, "is tormented by a demon." He didn't answer her. And his disciples urged him, saying, "Send her away because she just keeps yelling at us." Jesus says something very strange, almost unlike Jesus at this point. He says, "I was sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." But the Canaanite woman persisted, and she came and knelt before him and said, "Lord, help me." Now, if you were with us last week on Worship in the Gap, you'll remember when Jesus was walking on the water and Peter got out of his boat and came to Jesus, and he began to sink underneath the waves, and he cried out the same thing, "Lord, save me, help me." So she came and knelt before Jesus and said the same thing, "Lord, help me." He answered, I hate even saying this, but I think we all feel the offense in it. He said, "It's not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." He actually called her a dog. Remember, Jews and Canaanites despised each other. What he was doing is what we do in this divided society of ours right now. He attempted to cancel her, to call her a name that would shut down any conversation, any sort of connection between the two of them. He thought that that might be the end of it. But it wasn't for her. "Yes, Lord," she said, "but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." At that, Jesus said to her, "Woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you wish." And her daughter was healed instantly. How often we assume that examples of great faith would come from the professionals. How often we assume that those who are educated and trained and brought up in the traditions are the ones who would rise to give us examples of moral superiority. How often we would think that those major figures in the Bible would be those that we could look to for great examples. But how often it's not. All of us are fallible, error-prone, sin-filled people, and we all are struggling to find our way, aren't we? The thing about the Pharisees is that they look good on the outside. They look good, but they weren't that good on the inside. Examples of great faith don't always come from where we expect. In this story, Jesus turned that idea on its head, because sometimes great examples of great faith come from the unexpected places. They come from those that we least expect, all because their hearts are in the right places. This story, you may be interested to know, is one of 14 individual miracle stories in the Gospel of Matthew. And as we said last week, when we approach the miracle stories in the Bible, it's best not to ask, "Is this story true?" Remember what we said? But to ask, "How is this story true? How is this story true? What's it trying to tell us? Where's the truth at its heart?" This story is a great example that faith which comes from the heart is what makes us well. Religion, which comes from the law, only makes us blind. Jesus not only shows in this story that he has power over the demonic forces, but he has the power to restore us all to wholeness. The truth in this story is what I think all of us know intuitively, that what is important is not what's on the outside. That's not what counts. It's what's on the inside, right? It's what's on the inside. And if you ever questioned whether Jesus could reach even you and could make even you whole, I've got good news for you today. I know of one little brave Canaanite woman who would love to show you. One little woman with her heart in the right place.
O Christ the healer, we have come.
This is Jim McKenzie, interim minister at First Congregational Church in Port Washington, Wisconsin, surrounded by weeds, saying, stay well, stay safe, and stay faithful, and I'll see you next time right here in the Gap.